I'm Thomas Porteous and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top stories of the hour. The Israeli military warns it will use unprecedented force in Gaza City, urging residents to flee south. The army closes the main Salah al-Din evacuation route after 48 hours, saying only al-Rashid Street remains open. According to Russian state media, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will be meeting US Secretary of State Marco Rubio at the United Nations next week. The reports also state that a bilateral meeting is being planned between both the two leaders. The European Commission has introduced its 19th package of sanctions against Russia, aiming to increase pressure over the ongoing war in Ukraine. The measures are expected to target crypto, banking sectors and accelerate the EU's shift away from Russian fossil fuels. The United States vetoes a UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and lifting the aid restrictions, despite 14 members voting in favour. Denmark calls it a humanitarian and human failure, as famine is confirmed in the enclave. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said he submitted a fair and balanced nuclear proposal to the E3 and EU to prevent the reimposition of UN sanctions. He urged Europe to act, saying Iran cannot be the only party responsible for resolving the crisis. Sudan's Rapid Support Forces launched a drone strike on a mosque in Darfur's Abu Shuk camp, killing 75 displaced civilians. The attack comes as the RSF fights to control al-Fashir, with the UN warning of rising war crimes and ethnic violence. A British couple detained by the Taliban in Afghanistan since February are freed after Qatari mediation and flown to Doha. Barbie and Peter Reynolds had spent months in custody, prompting concerns over their health and safety. Canada and Mexico reaffirmed their commitment to the USMCA during talks in Mexico, despite US President Donald Trump's push to renegotiate the deal. Both leaders expressed optimism while agreeing to explore ways to make the trade pact fairer for all sides. Okay, we start this hour in the Middle East, where the Israeli military has warned it will use unprecedented force in Gaza City and has urged residents to flee south. The temporary evacuation route on Salah al-Din Road has now been closed, with al-Rashid Street now the only southbound option open. The IDF spokesperson, Avichai Aradi, said hundreds of thousands have now moved to what Israel calls humanitarian areas. Israel says Gaza City remains a Hamas stronghold. UN officials, however, say mass displacement is continuing, with nearly 450,000 civilians having fled the area. Meanwhile, heavy smoke and blasts have been reported south of Gaza City as Israel launches a major ground offensive. The border area is now the focus of intense military action, with residents urged to evacuate to safer locations. Okay, we're now joined by Ahmed Fatwa. He's the spokesperson for the Fatah movement, and he joins us live from Ramallah in the West Bank. Thank you very much for joining us, Ahmed, on the program. Of course, this offensive into Gaza City has been occurring for the past few days, Ahmed. 450,000 we now hear have left the city. However, that leaves over 500,000 people still left in Gaza's biggest urban hub. What can we expect from this, and why are the people of Gaza City staying put amidst these evacuation warnings?
Thank you for having me. What we can expect is another massacres after massacres done by the Israeli colonial regime that is targeting civilians, targeting neighborhood, obliterating entire city, demolishing entire residential blocks. in a grave violation to our moral compass, to the international law, to every code that humanity has invented in our modern history to prevent the suffering of civilians and women and children. Israel does not abide to these codes. They are destroying Gaza. It is an annihilation war. This is not annihilation, destruction, extermination campaign. This is not a war. They are whipping out entire residential blocks, forcefully displacing civilians who lack food, who lack any money to transport their things. They lack any humanitarian aid, and without any international body to help the refugees to transfer them from place to place. People are unable to pay for the cost to transport their belongings from the north to the south. Also pointing out that this is maybe some families has been displaced for the 10th or the 20th time, some even 30 times during this extermination campaign that Israel began in 2023. 2 years and the Palestinian people are suffering while the world remains impotent and while the United Nations is incapable of stopping this massacre, this genocide. And it is time that we call it as a genocide, nothing else, when the international committee by the UN, independent international committee by the UN that investigated and issued a 72 pages report about the genocide in Gaza, saying that this is a genocide. And when the association, International Association for Genocide Scholars and Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and even Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem says this is a genocide, then we have to call it what it is. It is a genocide that demands immediate intervention.
Ahmed, during this offensive, Israel have dropped these leaflets asking people to evacuate down south to al-Mawasi. There's critics saying that this area that Israel has directed the people of Gaza to go to isn't a humanitarian area at all. What more can you tell us about the area that the IDF has told the residents of Gaza City to head to?
The area, first of all, is overcrowded. It cannot fit all the population of Gaza City to go there. There is lack of medicine, lack of food. There's no hospitals there. There is no any aid support by any independent body or any international organization. So people has to rely on themselves to survive. The cities also have been targeted many times. You have witnessed that. We all have witnessed that. So it is not a safe zone at all. This is, a lie by the Israeli occupation. And even though that people are being displaced and transferring from location to location, they are still being targeted. They are transferring under fire, under the bombardment. They are not transferring into, a temporary cessation of fire. They are transferring under the guns, under the quadcopters that's shooting bullets at civilians, under the mass extensive bombardment in Gaza and the north and the south. And here I need to point out, before Israel said Rafah is the stronghold for Hamas, and they completely obliterated it, which is a city in the south of the Gaza Strip. Then they said Jabalia is a center for Hamas, and they obliterated the entire city, which is in the north of the Gaza Strip. Now they go to the middle. It is the Gaza City, middle north, and transferring people to the south next to Rafah. So people has left no places to survive. It's all targeted. It's all under fire, and there's no any kind of pressure on Israel to stop this criminality. I'm speechless in front of this impotency by the world government and the international community when people and children are suffering without doing anything. And United States is using the veto for the 6th time to perpetuate this genocide, to maintain this genocide. It's telling a huge red flag to the world that we are shifting in the world that does not respect human rights, that does not respect international law, that does not respect, equality between citizens, that look at the Israelis as more valuable than the Palestinians. This racism, this supremacism, and this authoritarianism and fascism need to be faced by the international community. Today is the Palestinians, tomorrow it could be anyone. We have to, listen to our hearts and stop this genocide and massacres.
Okay, Ahmed, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Always a pleasure to get your insight on these issues. We now move on to a related development from Europe, where Londoners are reacting to the anticipated recognition of the Palestinian state by the United Kingdom. This comes as the UK is preparing to recognise the state of Palestine after Israel failed to meet the conditions that would have postponed the historic step, including a ceasefire in Gaza. Let's listen in to what Londoners have to say about this anticipated recognition.
I do think it's the right action for the British government to recognise a Palestinian state. I think, to be honest, it's much later than it should have been. And I think this is the very least the British government could do to make up for a genocide.
I mean, it is the right action, but it's come far too late. I think there's I don't know, I don't follow politics anymore because it's too depressing, but it's too late. I think what's happening is the government are trying to win back some support from people that know that they're wrong about this. So whilst it's the right thing to do, it's probably for the wrong reason.
I think it's symbolic. I'm not sure it's got any teeth, because at the end of the day, this is an insoluble problem. I think that any action that brings people together to discuss the future, the people in the region have got to solve this problem. I'm not sure anybody outside can use their posturing for political gain to actually solve the root problem. And I think this is a Middle Eastern problem that needs to be solved by the people in the Middle East.
Meanwhile, President Trump has said that he disagrees with the United Kingdom on recognising Palestine. Now we move on to a different diplomatic development where the European Commission has said that it has presented a fresh package of sanctions against Russia for approval by member states as the bloc seeks to step up pressure on Russia on its war in Ukraine. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen, who was to outline details of the package, anticipated this week that it would target crypto and banks and seek to speed up the phase out of Russian fossil fuel imports. The Commission's spokeswoman, Paula Fino, said that we can confirm that the Commission has adopted a new package of sanctions against Russia, the 19th package. The 18 rounds of European sanctions imposed since Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022 have sought to sap its war chest with everything from asset freezes to a near-complete ban on importing Russian oil. The finalisation of the latest package comes after US President Donald Trump demanded that allies stop buying oil from Moscow and slap tariffs on China and India before he moves on punishing Russia. Meanwhile, after speaking with Trump this week, von der Leyen said that the Commission wanted to speed up the phase-out of Russian fossil fuels, which the bloc until now planned to eliminate by the end of 2027. Okay, of course, this is the 19th round of sanctions placed upon Moscow by the European Union, which has done little to impact Russia's war machine when it comes to actually acting in war. Russia's war now reaching its 4th year. Of course, Ukraine seeks that peace deal. Russia says it seeks that peace deal, but to no avail. Some largely symbolic diplomatic talks, but sanctions yet to come from the United States underneath the Trump administration, with the European unveiling its 19th round of them. These sanctions aimed at banks and crypto, with the EU once again announcing that they intend to completely phase out oil from Russia by the end of 2027. Okay, we move on once again. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is set to meet US Secretary of State Marco Rubio next week on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, according to Russian state media. Moscow's permanent representative to the UN, Vanessa Nanza, told a Russian news agency that the two diplomats will discuss a wide range of issues, covering both bilateral and multilateral topics. While no specific agenda has been confirmed, the meeting is planned as part of ongoing diplomatic efforts between Russia and the United States. The talks come amid ongoing global tensions and will be closely watched for any signs of progress in US-Russia relations. Now, a British couple who were detained by the Taliban in Afghanistan in February of this year have now been released and flown to Doha after Qatari mediation. Barbie and Peter Reynolds, whose family had voiced serious concerns over their health and their ability to survive Taliban custody, were detained by the group's interior ministry. Qatar was in talks with Taliban authorities for several months in coordination with British government and the couple's family to secure their release. Meanwhile, the UK Foreign Minister Yvette Cooper, on the release of the British couple, said that they are grateful to Qatar for the role they played. She also said that she is relieved to hear that Peter and Barbie are no longer detained in Afghanistan. We're now joined by Gautam Mukherjee. He is a senior journalist and he joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Gautam, for joining us here on this story. Gautam, what is the significance of this? Of course, a Qatari mediation in terms of this. Has this kind of thing happened before?
I think the Taliban is beginning to moderate its behavior with the international community, and this is an example by releasing the British couple. I have no idea what they were detained for, but obviously they haven't been harmed, and now with Qatari and British mediation, they have been released. This is a very good development. The Taliban regime, which was initially not even recognized by most countries, has gradually come to terms with various other countries. And this is a good thing because they're going to be in charge, one assumes, for the foreseeable future.
Yes, indeed. And Peter and Barbie Reynolds were married in Kabul in 1970 and have spent the past 18 years running a charitable training program that has been approved by local Taliban officials when the armed group reclaimed power in 2021. Gautam, it's funny how you mention the Taliban's negotiating with the international community. We saw some talks between the Taliban government and the United States government just the other day when it came to renegotiating prisoners on both sides. Do you ever see a time where the Taliban is recognized as the government on the foreign stage, as Russia has done and remains the only country to do so currently?
Well, China has made inroads while others have been absent, at least diplomatically, and in official channels, maybe from behind the scenes, they have been in communication. Just lately, I heard Mr. Trump say that he would like Bagram base back from more or less Chinese occupation. Bagram was built and developed by the Americans, and it is in a tremendously strategic spot with an eye to Central Asia as well as to the Indian subcontinent, and America would like it back. Now, that would only be possible. Of course, Biden left in a hurry, but that would only be possible if the Taliban and America come to terms with each other and possibly if not, establish formal diplomatic relations, at least a working relationship that is supportive of American presence on Afghan soil at Bagram Air Base. It would involve several thousand Americans to be based there, along with a lot of aircraft and other equipment. It is a reversal of the situation that Biden walked away from. And while it is no longer going to be aimed at dominating the Taliban, it is very important strategically for America and for the region if that were to happen.
Yes, Gautam Mukherjee, thank you very much for bringing us so much insight on that topic. We finish with some news from Europe, where European Union finance and economy ministers and delegates have arrived in Copenhagen for an informal meeting on a wide range of topics. European Union finance ministers will seek to reach a common position on how to set up a digital euro currency that could become an alternative to the now dominant US-based Visa and MasterCard systems. Attendees will also meet in the Danish capital for a second day of the informal meeting. Let's take a listen in to what some of the ministers and delegates had to say.
I will be able to also discuss with ministers and update them on the important progress we're making in stepping up our finance for Europe's security and defence capabilities. We have doubled our finance last year. We will triple it this year, 2025, so that 3.5 of our total financing, and that is 3.5 billion euros, will be devoted to security and defence capabilities in Europe.
We'll be discussing the Commission's work program, the Eurogroup's work program for 2026, and I would say it's broadly outlined also with the main priorities as regards Commission's work on strengthening the resilience and competitiveness of European economy, and having a particular focus on a digital euro, where we'll continue the work, and where from Commission side we think it's indeed important that we accelerate the work, we reach agreement in the Council.
Wir haben deutlich gemacht im Koalitionsvertrag, dass wir bereit sind, auch darüber zu reden, bei all den juristischen Schwierigkeiten, die es gibt, wie man die russischen Gelder noch intensiver nutzen kann, um der Ukraine zu helfen und sie zu unterstützen. Es gibt dort einen finanziellen Bedarf. Wir wollen unserer Verantwortung für die Ukraine nachkommen. Nur ich sage Ihnen auch, alles muss genau geprüft werden, und wir warten jetzt erstmal sehr konkret auf die Vorschläge durch die Europäische Kommission. Aber Deutschland wird eine Rolle einnehmen, bei der wir Dinge möglich machen wollen und nicht bei der wir Dinge blockieren.
The geopolitical tension is rising. It's a changing world that we are living in. Of course, all of us that will be gathering here wants Europe and the European Union to play a crucial role also in that new world. And if we step up and stick together, we can actually also shape the future and not only be shaped by it. So we would like to have a common discussion on how to position the European Union as wisely and strong as possible going forward.